Great to have you with us on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. We have made it through election week. However, the votes are still being counted in certain states throughout the country, and we still do not have a clear winner as to who is going to be our next president. What a week it has been, Tyler.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. We're getting really down to the wire. It seems like now, from at least the initial results, not taking into account any arguments that may be made from one side or the other in court, or any recounts that may be requested, but it looks like we're getting really close. Pennsylvania looks like it's just about ready to be done here in the next day or so. Georgia may be done as well, and Arizona it's getting close, and those are three of the really 5 to 6 key states right now that will ultimately decide whether Joe Biden pulls this out. He's in a healthy lead at the moment, or if Donald Trump is able to make a comeback and take the presidency, which is still very much a possibility.
And as we've been saying, the road to the White House, definitely Michigan has played a big impact in this. Biden has now been declared the winner in the state of Michigan. However, the debate is still raging on. We are in the middle of this fight with the president. Did you catch his address last night to the nation?
Yeah, I did. It was definitely something I haven't seen before from a president inside the White House. Certainly, we've had some contested presidential elections in my lifetime. In 2000, most notably 2004, for a little while was kind of close, and of course 2016 was a very close election as well.
So obviously the big debate being the votes being counted down at the TCF Center. It's still always going to be Cobo Hall for me. I'm sorry, but it's still always going to be Cobo to me. But they were being, counted. And did you see the story come out where they were saying that someone wheeled in all of these ballots? Yeah. And it turned out it was just a photog with a wagon hauling his gear in and out. Yeah. So it's just how quickly some of these narratives with today's social media can take hold to the fact that it makes it all the way to the White House. And it really was just a photographer with a wagon pulling his equipment in and out. If anyone gets a chance as well, Charlie Laduff. Do you remember Charlie?
Yes, I do.
Charlie Laduff was a reporter, still is a reporter here in the Detroit area. So Charlie this year decided to actually volunteer to count the votes. And so he was in the TCF Center for this craziness, and he did write an article last night. It's on Deadline Detroit, and I'm sure he'll be talking about it on his show today. He does a podcast called the No BS News Hour, and he was really saying, there was no fraud inside the TCF Center going on. He was there to witness it, and Charlie always has a great take on the way he views things and also his storytelling as well. And really, the true heroes in all of this, so many of the clerks, but also all of the volunteers. Some of these people have been sequestered or were sequestered for hours inside these facilities counting the votes, and they've done an amazing job, and they do it for basically nothing. They get a little stipend, but you're sequestered and you're just in there counting these votes one after another after another after another, hour after hour after hour, and they've done an amazing job. So to all of the volunteers, my brother-in-law volunteers out in Sterling Heights, has been doing it for well over a decade, and it's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, but to all of them, thank you so much. But also, if you get a chance, read Charlie Laduff's article, deadlinedetroit.com, or you can also see it on Facebook for his inside encounter, what actually did happen down at the TCF Center, because Michigan obviously also in the middle of the lawsuits, which a judge is already throwing out.
Yeah, it's one of many states that these have been submitted in. One was also thrown out in Georgia already, although there's likely to be more if that state does end up going Biden's way after it had been for a while. up until recently, leaning slightly, ever so slightly, toward Donald Trump. So a lot of contested states, even states that have really close battles in the presidency and the U.S. Senate. We've even heard John James refuse to concede that race to Gary Peters. So there's more of this to come, and especially in these hotly contested states that are ultimately deciding this presidency.
It's definitely an interesting time here in America. And don't forget, in the middle of this, we are also in the middle of a pandemic. And the cases continue to rise here in the state of Michigan. If you head over to civiccentertv.com, that is where we put up the daily headlines. Just click on coronavirus. And yet again, Michigan has shattered its daily COVID-19 case record again Thursday, as it surpassed 5,000 cases in a day, joining other Midwestern states reporting an explosion of cases. With Thursday's 5,710 high case mark, Michigan joined 14 other states, setting new single-day records the same day. Michigan's neighbors, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Illinois, all among the record breakers. Local health departments are investigating 590 outbreaks across the state, the largest since the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of the outbreaks are occurring in long-term care facilities, schools, manufacturing sites, construction sites, healthcare, and social gatherings. That's according to the state data. As it continues, these numbers are going to rise. I think it's going to get worse because we have to remember we are also in the middle of election. So just like we were talking about, the TCF Center, while everyone down there was wearing a mask and, trying to use the proper social distancing and things of those nature, you still have a large amount of people in one facility. So I would imagine cases are going to continue to grow. We also had a record number of people out voting this year. And while most of those were absentee, we still had over 2 million people voting in person. So again, I think those numbers are going to continue to rise.
Yeah, I think they definitely are going to continue to rise because people are going out more often. People are still doing their best, it would seem, to keep some distance, but people are letting their guard down a little bit also, and especially with the regulations from the governor being lifted and some confusion being there, that certainly doesn't help in the state of Michigan. But overall, as people are getting into the colder months and are congregating back indoors, where the spread is a little bit more, is much more likely than it is outdoors, this is something that was expected, and certainly the circumstances that we're currently in don't help.
And it's also, COVID is continuingly to spread among Michigan's children, as more than 7,000 tested positive in October alone. 18 kids are currently hospitalized statewide. The number of Michigan kids testing positive has nearly doubled this fall, from 3,644 confirmed pediatric cases in August to 7,152 last month. Again, that's according to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Among the children testing positive last month, 1,494 were 9 years old or younger, and then 5,600, just over 5,600, were in that 10 to 19 age group. More children were hospitalized with confirmed or suspected COVID-19 on Thursday than any other day since the state started tracking the pediatric coronavirus hospitalizations back in August. Serious illness, though, is still not common in kids with COVID-19. So that is the good thing. But again, as we remember, it's not just the kids, but they're able to spread it, maybe not directly to their parents, who could be healthy as well, but you have grandparents, elderly grandparents and nieces and, aunts and uncles. And when you see your grandkids, you want to hug them. And so that's why they're trying to track the cases in the kids as well, because that directly impacts our older generation here in the state.
Yeah, the kids, and especially with kids being in school as well, in some places still, they're able to bring that back home and then spread it from their home to more people if they're going out with their parents to the grocery store, or if they're out in a public place, or if they have a family gathering or gathering with some friends. It makes that even more likely. So I found this interesting yesterday. The governor
by the way, is calling on our legislators to pass a law requiring residents to wear masks indoor places and crowded outdoor areas. Governor said she sent a letter to Republican lawmakers this week asking them to pass a bill. Lawmakers, especially Republicans leading the House and the Senate, have asked to have more of a role in the process of tackling the pandemic. Now is their time to act, according to the governor. State health orders issued in October already require mask wearing in public, yet case rates continue to rise. While Whitmer said she thinks putting the requirement in law will likely encourage Michiganders to take precaution more seriously, she knows people are tired and frustrated. Whitmer also said state health and labor officials are going to be increasing security of remote work policies, especially for employers requiring staff to work on site. The state may cite employers require changes and issue fines of up to $7,000. That's according to the governor. She had her press conference yesterday afternoon updating the state on the COVID-19 crisis here in the state of Michigan, and that was one of the things that came out of it. Of course, some of the Republican lawmakers are saying that her request for the lawmakers to pass a law is nothing more than a political stunt because we already have a health order in place. Why do you need a law as well? I see their point on that, as well. We already found this once again with her executive orders. It's in place. We know it's in place. But I was really curious about the going into some of the companies and tell them that they need to have some of their employees work remotely, because how do you know who is vital to in-person versus who is not, and how do they make those mandates? But again, we've seen some of the times that these mandates that come out of the health department or prior through the governor's executive orders, a lot of times they would put these mandates in place. However, the actual implementation of them was not always so clear.
Yeah, it would have to go back to a situation like we had before where they were encouraging these things to be done, and they would say, well, your local health department or the state may come out for a random check or may make a random call and ask about your operation to figure out if you are following protocols where people that have to be in the office for essential operations or cannot do their job without being in the office are there, or if you are taking advantage of the situation under the regulations and only sending a small sum of people home that maybe isn't the entirety of people that don't have to absolutely be in the office.
So, Tyler, one of the things I like to do before I come into the studio is check on the information directly from our county executive's office as well as the state of Michigan. So one thing that's good about CivicCenterTV.com, if you go over to the coronavirus page, we did put links directly to so many of these entities. So the state of Michigan, you can actually track now the outbreaks. So if you go to the state of Michigan, it takes you right there about the new orders. There's the clarification about the restaurants. You're going to find that on the page as well. But also you can go onto the site and get the information about trying to track some of the outbreaks, where they are happening. So just be informed for yourself as well. So it makes it a little bit easier there as we just go to CivicCenterTV.com, click on that link, and go do the research for yourself as well. Be informed. That's one thing I think we've all learned during this pandemic is be informed, because there's so much information and misinformation out there.
And there's and like you said with the misinformation, there's so many places to find misinformation, and finding that reliable information from direct sources can be really tough, and that's why we have provided CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, where you can find links to the state, to your local municipalities, and other experts as well at the federal level for more information.
So we have a great show for you here on this Friday, a little bit of a special edition. So we brought you the post-election special on Wednesday, and today we are going to be honoring our veterans with a little bit of a special treat. Do you want to fill them in about that, Tyler?
Yes, we have Dave Scott on site at the Recreation Activity Center in West Bloomfield. We'll go to him in just a few minutes after our upcoming break. But he is at the West Bloomfield Parks annual Heroes Appreciation Celebration. It's a partnership between Parks, West Bloomfield Township, the Orchard Mall, our operations here at Civic Center TV, and Motown Digital. It's usually one really nice big ceremony honoring veterans on Veterans Day or on the Friday before. And of course, with COVID-19, you have to find new ways to do these community traditions. And so we're doing it in two parts. Today, there's a drive-through lunch for veterans and some information for them on site as well. We'll have Dave Scott there to tell us a little bit more in a few minutes about exactly what is going on over there and what can be expected. And then, of course, next week, Wednesday, we'll have our entire megacast dedicated to veterans, learning more about their stories in our community and outside of our community as well.
They're such an important part of our community. They sacrifice so much to protect our freedoms. And, this is great that we have this day set aside to honor their sacrifice and their service to our country, but we should also remember that every day we should be taking a moment to say thank you to the veterans that have served us. I know that anytime I'm out in public, if I see someone with a hat on, I make sure I stop and say thank you to them. A lot of Vietnam veterans still struggling.
Yep.
All these years later, they're still struggling because when they came home, a lot of them did not come home to a hero's welcome. So it could be a delayed thank you, but a thank you and a show of appreciation and gratitude is always appreciated by the members of our armed services. So we'll have that for you in just a little bit, but we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19. To make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
One thing that's been great about this week is we've had a record number of turnout. People voting to have their voices heard. And that is one of the beautiful things about our country is that we are able to have our voices heard. We live in a land of the free. However, that came at a great cost. Millions of Americans have fought on the front lines. They have served our country for us to have those freedoms. And we like to honor them, and we are doing so here today with a special free drive-through lunch, a little bit different setup this year due to COVID-19. However, we are taking our part here at Civic Center TV and the greater West Bloomfield area community to honor all of those that have served our country. And to fill us in a little bit more, Dave Scott out there at the Recreation Activities Center. Dave, thanks for being with us, and tell us what you have going on.
Ronnie Doll, how you doing? Beautiful day. Wow, who scheduled this? Kelly Heyer from Parks and Rec must have done it. It is a beautiful day. I'm at the Civic Center complex in West Bloomfield off Walnut Lake Road, about a half a mile west of Orchard Lake Road. And we are in front of the Parks and Recreation facility here over by the library, by West Bloomfield Township Hall and the police department for the annual Heroes Appreciation Celebration. And Ronnie, as you and Tyler were talking a couple of minutes ago, a different flavor this year. We all have our patriotic masks on. We have flags. We're in the parking lot. And part of the Heroes Appreciation event every year is honoring our heroes, honoring our veterans, serving them breakfast or lunch. And we do it the same way we've been doing COVID testing. Drive through. People are going to drive through today, Tyler and Ronnie. We're gonna feed them. We're gonna entertain them. We're gonna talk to them. There's going to be a lot of festivities going on here. And Kelly Heyer's here. She'll tell us about it in a minute. You guys can ask her a question or two. But that is the scene. Even better now that our Fire Chief Greg Flynn is here. So yeah, it's going to be a great day, Ronnie. And I don't know who ordered the weather. It's like 60 degrees. I have no jacket on. A light breeze, not a cloud in the sky, and the veterans are going to be honored by the weather gods today as well.
Dave, I ordered the weather for you just to make it extra special.
Hey, thank you. Well, thanks, Ronnie. I appreciate it.
How were you able to come up with
appreciate it.
this new format this year?
Well, you know what? I didn't, but the person that did is right here, and it's Kelly Heyer from West Bloomfield Parks and Rec. Hi, Kelly.
Good morning.
Good morning. Aren't you cheery today?
Always.
So did you hear Ronnie's question? How did you come up with a new format?
Well, we started with a Zoom conversation, the planning committee. We started with a meeting of the minds and came up with different ideas. And then, of course, we talked to your staff and said, how can we do this? And we came up with, well, our curbside things were working well. Let's just do that because we can ensure social distancing. And it seems like our senior community are very comfortable with our curbside events. So we put out a call to our sponsors from prior to, as well as our volunteers that came out in years past. And here we are today. We have a catered lunch, both from Jagged Fork and a donation from Meals on Wheels. And then we have community volunteers that are starting to line the sidewalks here with their signs and their flags, going to be waving on our seniors and our other veterans.
So it's 11 to noon. The vets that we're going to feed are all pre-registered, 132 pre-registered, 206 lunches will be distributed. It's an annual tradition. We've done it inside. This year we're outside. Larry Nyland has the Lakes FM signs here now, so it's a complete setup. And Ronnie, you know, it's cool if people just want to come by and see all this. We can't necessarily get you a meal, although if you're a veteran, I bet we can figure out a way to take care of you. I'm messing it up already, aren't I, Kelly?
That's okay. We do have a wait list. So
All
the
right.
people that no-show, we will be able to call them and say, hey, we do have a lunch available.
But, you know, Ronnie, if people are tuning in right now and they want to just come by and cheer on the vets when they come through our drive-thru, we're going to make room for them. So I invite everybody, Kelly, unless it's not cool. I mean, I'm going to invite everybody to come by and join us and salute our veterans.
Yeah, we just want to make sure the crowd size is manageable. But I think we've got about 25 community volunteers today, so we could have a few more.
All right, so, you know, that's what's going on, Ronnie. It's a beautiful day, and the only thing that's really missing is you. I mean, Tyler won't give you a break back there in the studio and let you out and have fun
That is
with
a
us.
bummer. We were thinking you were going to be here today.
The weather is nice. It's a great day to be outdoors, and I already hear the horns honking.
Yeah. I can't tell you how disappointed they are that I'm here and you're not here, Ronnie.
I doubt that. I doubt that very much, Dave.
No, it's all cool. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, Kelly, people will come by, we'll honor them, and we'll feed them. And I'm hoping if I put my mask on, is it going to be cool to go up to the cars? And will I be able to ask some questions and say hello to some of the vets?
I'm
Get 'em on the
sure, and
radio?
we
That'd
do
be
know
all right.
a couple of our veterans. Okay, so we can personally.
Dave, we seem to be losing you a little bit there, your audio. But
Right.
Tyler, do we have him back?
It looks like we do have him back, yes.
Okay, here, let's try this again. Dave, you're back.
Okay, sorry, you lost us? I apologize.
Yeah, it's just briefly.
Okay, so I can ask Kelly a question. I'm going to put my mask on and then see if you guys can hear me okay while I have my mask on, all right?
Okay, just a moment. So, Kelly, well, in the years past, this event has, of course, been inside. It's been at the Orchard Mall. It's not just been the breakfast, but it's been other information for veterans in our community and for people to learn about veterans. Are there any more of those kinds of opportunities today in the drive-through event? Of course, we'll have another show next week, Wednesday, where we'll have a fuller scope of that on our show over here. But on site today, as we've traditionally had, any other opportunities to learn about and to serve our veterans as we give back to them as a thank you for serving our country?
Well, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. However, we have a great database of our veterans here. So if there's listeners out there that want to do something for our veterans that are involved with West Bloomfield Parks and the West Bloomfield community, please reach out to us because we do have a way of contacting them. But as of today, yep, it's just the drive-through luncheon. And then on Wednesday, we're just looking really forward to the Megacast dedicated to our veterans.
And Kelly, you've been able to speak to so many of our servicemen and women through the years. Any stories resonate with you in your heart as we pay tribute to them today and every day?
Well, as you know, our veterans are extraordinarily humble. So it is challenging sometimes to get stories out of them. And when we try to thank them and even by serving them instead of having them wait in a line or bring them an extra serving of coffee when we could have an indoor event, you could even see the gratitude in their eyes, and sometimes they even tear up as they're watching the entertainment. And I would say I can't think of a story per se, but you can see their emotion in their faces. And a lot of times they do bring their spouses or other family members to in past events, and it just was really neat to see the expressions on their faces. And you can see that if you were to watch some past video of just the gratitude and humbleness when they do come out.
Kelly, can you quickly just give us an update on the history of this event? When did it start and what did it grow out of?
Well, 3 years ago, we started meeting as a planning committee because historically the township did do a outdoor event around Veterans Day. And as you know, in years past, Veterans Day, we could have 3 inches of snow, we could have clouds and rain. And so 4 years ago, that was the last time we did something outdoors here at the township. And we said, okay, we're doing this veterans event. It's really crummy weather from year after year, and veterans aren't coming. And that's the whole intent on honoring them, right? You want to serve them and show our appreciation. So we put a planning committee together to think outside the box and how we can thank them. And that's where we came up with the idea of a breakfast. And so 3 years ago, we did that at Orchard Mall.
Well, considering that we're in the middle of a pandemic and so many people have felt isolated during this time, I think it's only fitting that Mother Nature gave us a beautiful day today.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. By the way, how do I sound with the mask? Is that okay?
You sound beautiful.
Sound beautiful.
Always.
Thank you, Tyler. So 11 until noon, you do need to be pre-registered. 123 vets are pre-registered. 206 lunches will be distributed. This is an annual tradition. It started 3 years ago with the parks. And, of course, Kelly from Orchard Mall is here. I saw her just a second. Hi, Kelly! And began over there, and now we're out here for a drive-through COVID-19 event, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. We've got the fire department here. We got Parks and Rec here. We got people cheering on the vets. The police department is here. Yo, police department. They're here. Everybody's here. So it's going to be a great event. And Ronnie and Tyler, I got the best gig here at the company. I'm out in the sunshine. I got a question for you guys.
Oh, what's your question, Dave?
Okay, tonight, West Bloomfield Lakers football, second round of postseason district action. Tyler, the final score of tonight's football game.
I think tonight's final score is going to be, once again, I think it's going to be quite the blowout from the West Bloomfield Lakers against this Troy Colts team tonight. But I do think Troy may be able to put some points up on the board and break that streak. So I'm going to go with a conservative 38-6 West Bloomfield win.
Yeah, now West Bloomfield has not given up any points in 4 straight games. Donut, bagel, donut, bagel. And you know, hey, look, it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. So what a day for community television and radio. We're out here live at the West Bloomfield Parks office for the Heroes Appreciation Celebration. You guys are doing the Oakland County Megacast, and it's Laker football tonight at 7 o'clock.
Action-packed day here on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Dave, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be checking in with you throughout the morning. When Tyler and I come back, we are going to be bringing in the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Tyler, beautiful weekend. The entire weekend is going to be extremely nice. However, restaurants have to be very worried right now as we go into the winter months. We're seeing a surge. And then now the health department has put on this new mandate with them. So we'll be getting an update from the vice president with the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association about how they're going to be handling things going into the colder weather months. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the medical director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for tuning in to the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studio alongside Tyler Keith, Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. You could catch us on Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. If you're out driving around, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. Also today, we are live streaming today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on the West Bloomfield Parks Facebook page. So we want to say thank you to them as well. I will say, Tyler, Dave sounded like he was having too much fun out there.
He is. He seems like he's having a good old time out there hanging out with our local veterans and our friends at West Bloomfield Parks.
Yes, they're a great event that they're putting on today, and we'll be checking in with Dave throughout the morning. And it's a beautiful day to be outdoors, and it's going to be a beautiful weekend to enjoy what could be the last nice weekend before winter takes hold of the state of Michigan. And for our local restaurants, I'm sure that they are hoping that they do have the crowds that they need to try to give them a little boost in the bottom line, because these are some tough times right now for our local restaurants. Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast, we want to bring in John McNamara. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. John, thank you for being with us. I have to say, when that mandate came down from the health department requiring restaurants to now get the information from their customers, I immediately thought of you and some of these restaurant owners thinking, how in the world are they going to do this?
Yeah, Monday was surprisingly one of the busier days we've had this year. I don't think anyone was quite ready for how the public would receive this, and overwhelmingly it was not that well received in terms of having to give that information, what would happen to that information, where it would go. But luckily on Wednesday it became optional, and that became a lot easier for our members and for any restaurant or hospitality area in the state.
So we'll back up here for just a second for those that aren't familiar. Of course, the health department came out with the mandate that if you are eating or visiting your local restaurant, they are now required, or they were going to be required, to get your name, your phone number for possible contact tracing. But when that mandate came out, it's like they put it in writing, but it was lacking instruction and clarity as well. It makes you wonder, who is running the state of Michigan right now? Because this is public relations 101. That if you're going to put this stuff out, there are going to be questions, and you need to have those questions answered before you put this information out. So, as the vice president for the association, were you guys given a heads up that this was in the pipeline at all?
We were given about a 24-hour heads up that this was coming. We voiced our concerns with this process. We then, passed along some questions we knew would come up. And they said, they did take those questions very seriously. And they said, we'll have an FAQ doc out as soon as we can. But I think even before they could really have that FAQ doc out, they got feedback mostly from their local health department saying this simply won't work in terms of, the privacy information. They don't have the bandwidth to enforce it. And they tried to do this in the state of Oregon. Something similar happened, and the ACLU stepped in. In the state of Washington, the ACLU stepped in, and before it was even implemented, they walked it back in the state of Washington as well. So I think it's one of those things that sounds good on a piece of paper, and probably wouldn't hurt, but the ability to implement it and the ability to implement it easily and well just isn't there right now.
Right, and when you're doing this and you're not giving the business owners a chance to adapt and come up with a plan on how to do it, then there's no conformity and things get confusing. So I will say, I think most of the people in the public are very willing to take part and want to be a part of the solution to the COVID-19 crisis right now. But when it does come to your information and your privacy of information, and I know people say, well, we're really kind of giving that up every time we're out or we use our phones. You get an app, you're putting your name and your phone number out there. Sure. You're being tracked anyway. Any feedback from some of the restaurants now that we're a few days into this? Are people pretty willing to give that information so far? Any issues?
No, there have been some issues, and what I would say to people have said it's no different than ordering a pizza. However, when you order a pizza, you're voluntarily making the choice to go there and order that pizza. If you walk into a restaurant, they're just different. If you don't have a reservation, so we did see some struggles Monday, but now that this is no longer a required practice, it's just a strongly recommended practice. We're seeing most restaurants. They'll offer it. They'll say, if you'd like to leave your information, you don't have to. But the vast majority of people are choosing not to. And, if an outbreak were to happen, over 90% of transactions at restaurants are done with a credit or debit card. So if they really had to find who was there at certain times, there's a way to do it.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've been on the state's website. So for people that don't know, the state does post their clusters and their outbreaks by a setting. It's updated on Mondays, I believe, just like the information for the schools is updated as well. When it comes to bars and restaurants across the state of Michigan, the numbers actually, to me, are surprisingly low. So where is this coming out of?
So it's been a misnomer since all this started that bars and restaurants were a super spreader, or that's where outbreaks occur. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense that they're low at restaurants, because before this happened, restaurants didn't want to see anyone get sick in their establishments or in general. So, they've been following the rules, and people have to wonder, would you rather have people in a restaurant where they're going to make you wear your mask until you sit down? They're going to make sure, unless you're sitting down, you're 6 feet apart, and they're going to enforce the rules that are in place? Or would you rather have people gathering in someone's basement where there are no capacities, no one's going to wear a mask, and, obviously it's just a little more loose? So, my argument is, restaurants are going to be far safer than your friend's basement right now with a bunch of your friends.
And just so to put the numbers in perspective, as of October 29th, according to the state of Michigan, outbreaks associated with a bar and employee associated, there were only 2 in the entire state, none here in the Oakland County area. 2 for employee and patron associated, again, 2 statewide, none here in the Oakland County area. When it comes to restaurants, employees associated, 11 through the entire state, 3 here in Oakland County. But compared to, nursing facilities, which have 42, schools have 44.
Yep.
So I guess I will say, when I started looking at the outbreak numbers myself, I thought it was going to be much higher than what it is. So is that, number one, it's just not maybe getting reported if there are cases, or is this pretty accurate about where we stand right now because bars and restaurants have been taking so many protocols?
No, this is accurate from where we stand right now, and it's because our members and even non-member restaurants across the state immediately stepped up, adapted their business model in order to serve the public. Because for some people, going out to eat is an event or is a treat, but for some people, restaurants are their food source. 51% of the meals in this country are provided by a restaurant. Some people don't have access to grocery stores or the ability to cook if they do. So it's just always important to remember that while restaurants are fun and they're great, and I love going out and checking out new restaurants, in some places they truly are a public service.
Yeah, so there were some questions that I had. Maybe you can help clarify, because I read the order when it first came out, and it said, specifically mention for patrons ordering food. So if you were ordering food, then that's where you had to take your name and number, but it didn't mention specifically for people that were possibly just ordering a drink. Has that been clarified?
So it has been. So it was really, if you're going in to get takeout, you're fine. But essentially, if you're going to go in and sit down, even if it was a cup of coffee, we had a member reach out who, they have sort of a grocery store that has a little coffee. They're mostly a grocery, but they have a little coffee area with 3 or 4 tables where someone might sit down for 15, 20 minutes. And they called and said, do we really have to take their name? And, they did on Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday rolled around and it became suggested but not required. So then they did. But it was, if you're meeting your friends for happy hour, you still need to sit, give your name.
John McNamara with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And talking about the clarification, so now it's recommended, but if there is an outbreak and the restaurants, so is it recommended that they collect it, or are they still required to ask for the information?
It's recommended that they collect it. It is no longer required.
Okay, but do they still have to ask for it?
No.
No, not at all. Okay, so there's some clarification there. It's like if you want to do your part, you're open to them having your information, because I think one of the big concerns also had to do is, while we like to think that all of the employees that work in, the thousands of restaurants and establishments throughout the state of Michigan are honest, ethical people, we do know that sometimes this information can get out. It's no different than, we've seen with credit cards. There have been credit card scams with employees that have been able to get your credit card. One of the things I like, and they've been doing it in Europe for decades, is they actually bring the machine to your table and run your card right there in front of you and give it back. So you never have to actually give your card over. So knowing that, I would think as a business owner, even now, if I collect that information, is it what happens if it is shared and that information gets out?
Well, that was a major concern of our members, of if something, because things happen, and we've seen plenty of people who have a QR code that goes to a Google form, but if that information is compromised, who is liable for it? The last thing our members or any business in general wants to do right now is expose themselves to any more cost or any more liability than they already are. It's, we've already lost about 2,000 restaurants in the state of Michigan. We think we could lose 2,000-ish more by through this winter and through the end of the year. So if you're looking at 4,000 to 5,000 restaurants closing permanently and 1,000 hotels closing, that's one massive job loss, but also just a massive loss to our economy and to tourism in general.
John, the recommendation from the state is to take is to ask for that information, collect that information, and send it in. But as you said, most customers are opting not to provide that information. From the restaurant's perspective, in terms of maintaining a clean environment and preventing any sort of an outbreak, or being able to report that properly should there be a potential of an outbreak in the facility from an employee that may test positive, or from a customer that reports back and says, hey, I tested positive, I was recently in your restaurant. What is your organization recommending to its member businesses to prepare for that situation, given the fact that most customers are opting not to provide information to the state per this recommendation?
So, we're just recommending that they follow their customers' lead. And, what we're seeing most of our members do is, next to the QR code that has the menu for food and drinks, have a QR code with the form where if they want to, they can enter their name. And if they don't, they don't. But additionally, we've had members who have outbreaks before. And again, with 90% being credit card transactions, if they believe they needed to, I'd be a little more work, but they could find that information. But also, to be considered exposed to, even if an employee had an outbreak, it's close contact for 15 minutes. So, I don't know of a lot of situations where you're talking to your server for 15 minutes in the time frame when you're in a restaurant. And obviously, the other people you're sitting at the table with. So if one of them tests positive, they can let the other people at the table know.
So I'm thinking, if you're talking to your server for a full 15 minutes, that's really slowing down service, or you definitely want a very specific order. Yeah. And you're not going to be so popular of a customer. So this mandate, these recommendations aside, we're going into the winter months. We've had incredible weather, other than last Sunday when it snowed. Of course, only in Michigan can it snow on one Sunday and be 65 on the next week. So knowing that, I know a lot of the restaurants are still struggling with trying to get clarification on their expanded areas and their tents going into the winter months. And that is if they can even get a tent, because supplies are hard to get right now. So how are things looking for some of the restaurants in the winter months?
In general, it's a scary time for us as an association and for the industry as a whole. Because as you mentioned, we're still working on getting clarification of exactly, what can be done. But even if someone wanted to get a tent, they're very hard to come by right now. So, we're starting to have discussions on things like maybe some sort of, a tax break for takeout or a tax break on takeout containers, or really getting creative to incentivize people to continue to utilize takeout during this time. And obviously, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the governor's office has encouraged people not to go inside to a restaurant, which is, unfortunate. However, we believe that, takeout is really going to be what helps people get to spring. Hopefully by spring, this starts to be in the rearview mirror and we have a reliable vaccine. So, it's going to be tough. It's going to be scary. We're definitely going to see some long-time multi-generational businesses probably have to close their doors. But also encouraged by the conversations we've had with the administration on, encouraging takeout and encouraging to help this industry. And then hopefully by, Thanksgiving or early December, the federal government will be back in Washington, D.C., and we'll see another round of paycheck protection funding and maybe another round of stimulus checks, which will dramatically help as well.
Yeah, how is the employee situation looking for a lot of these owners? Still struggling?
So it's still struggling, and it's tough. They have plenty of people who want to work, but they don't necessarily have enough hours for these people to work. And for some people, it still makes more sense, not to go to work because unemployment's just better. And you are seeing the people who luckily for the most part are over tipping and being generous, which is great. And we thank everyone who's done that, and we hope they encourage to do that. But when you can only have 50 people inside a 6,000 square foot restaurant, it's tough to have even half of your team there, to serve 50 people. That could be only 4 or 5 tables. So at that point, you're going to have probably two servers, someone behind the bar, and then a very limited kitchen staff. But obviously, if it could be full, you're going to have a lot more people. But there's a 50-person cap right now inside.
Yeah, and on top of that, they just also put the new restrictions back in place for some of the bigger venue events, like for people having weddings. So these banquet halls, they still have to pay their taxes, I'm sure. They still have to keep the lights on. And without a vaccine, you just wonder how many people are going to say enough already. I'm leaving this industry and I'm going to shift focus into another area.
Yeah, so we're worried about that, but also, we had a member who had to call 2 brides who were supposed to have a 140 and 160 person wedding last weekend, and have to call them on Thursday and say, "I'm really sorry. I hate to make this call, but you're either going to have to skim down your guest list, or you're going to have to postpone your wedding because all of a sudden now I can only have 50 people inside my very large banquet facility."
Oh my goodness gracious, I would not want to be the person making that phone call.
Nope.
And let's hope that they weren't a bridezilla about that, because again, it just puts some of these business owners in such a hard spot. I'm just imagining that conversation when I plan my wedding. I mean, you're so tense, it's never an easy thing to go through, and then to have that call the week of your wedding, oh no.
Well, not the week, the day before in one case.
Oh my goodness.
And then only 48 hours before the other one.
Oh, yeah, I guess it's really, sorry you don't make the list. Can you just imagine them showing up and turning them away?
Right. Or having to make some really awkward phone calls the night before the wedding.
Well, we'll just, we appreciate your time. Quickly before we let you go, though, I know in the beginning when the mask rules were coming out, there were a lot of issues with people fighting with, the employees about having to put their mask on, not having to put their mask on. So now with, restaurants also trying to collect information, for the most part, are people in the public being pretty gracious and nice about this? Because we're 7 months into this. We're used to it. With masks now, it's a generally accepted practice. There was a slight period when the Supreme Court struck down the governor's ability to issue orders beyond 30 days, where people thought it was, sort of this free-for-all. But then Department of Health and Human Services put it back out, and people are just used to it with masks. We're really not seeing that be a problem anymore. We had 1 or 2 incidents where, unfortunately, people took the information thing very seriously and very personally when they were asked. But luckily, that was just a sort of blip on the radar, and it's, they're continuing to move forward, but move forward with
extreme caution and extreme worry about, what's going to happen here when this 70 degree weather eventually goes away, because unfortunately it will. If it stayed all winter, that'd be fine with me, but it's not going to. So
well, we wish them the best of luck. They have a long road ahead of them. And John, thank you again, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. I know that you and your team do not have an easy job up there. And I can only imagine when this health department mandate came out, how crazy your phone must have been ringing off of the hook. So thank you again for all that you do. Tyler, though, this is a special Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast, and we want to head back out to our one and only Mr. Dave Scott, who is out at our Heroes Appreciation Luncheon, honoring all of those that have served our great country. Dave, thanks again for being with us. Who do you have with you out there?
Ronnie, I just have myself. I didn't really know when you guys are coming. I just need to know what our plan is, but I can tell you that it's a great scene here. The Heroes Appreciation Celebration is going on here at the West Bloomfield Civic Center complex. And I know that people are listening all over Oakland County today, and I just want to let you know, if you got a couple of minutes over the next hour and you are anywhere near Orchard Lake Road and Walnut Lake Road, if you take a minute and drive out Walnut Lake Road west of Orchard Lake Road, pull into the West Bloomfield Township Civic Center complex, drive over by the Parks and Recreation Department, you'll see a long line of veterans in their cars between now and noon, all getting free lunches as part of our Heroes Appreciation Celebration. It's been happening the last several years. West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation, Orchard Mall, and a number of other sponsors from around the area, along with all of us at Civic Center TV, get together every year and do this. We've got all of our first responders here, fire trucks, EMS from the fire department, police department is here, and we're handing out lunches. We've got a whole line of cars. Tyler, every single one of them, Tyler and Ronnie, are tuned in to 89.3, I can tell from right here, Lakes FM, or 88.1 The Biff. And, hey, it's just a great day, a beautiful day, as we honor our veterans here in West Bloomfield and across Oakland County.
Dave, when we were talking with you a little bit earlier, I heard a lot of horns honking out there as people swing by, and just to give a quick beep to try to honor those that have sacrificed so much for us. How long is the line right now?
It literally goes maybe 10, 20, maybe 30 miles. It's extending from here in the parking lot down Northwestern Highway. In fact, I heard from the Channel 4 traffic copter, or that might have been the Fox copter, sorry, Ronnie, that there's a major jam up at Telegraph and 696 right now, as people are all making their way to West Bloomfield. If you're driving down Orchard Lake Road by Pontiac Trail, it extends all the way back to Kego. It's really creating quite... Now, there's about 15, 20 cars here in the parking lot, and they're coming through, and it's a beautiful thing. It's really great. But, what's really cool is when the cars come through, then they are honored by all the folks in the township and the library and the first responders and other people who got together from the community. Our township supervisor is there, Steve Kaplan, and Ronnie, what's really amazing is our township clerk, Debbie Binder, is over there, and she looks a little sleepy. It's like there's been some kind of election or something going on the last couple of days, but she's here. Everybody's here. It's really great.
Dave, I'm surprised she's awake. She definitely deserved the rest of this week off, right?
Well, no question about it. Maybe even a little bit longer. But, it's great to see the electoral process play out here. We can talk about that, but we're not going to get into that discussion today. Hey, I do have Mark Lowry here. Do you want me to say hi to him for a couple of minutes, or what's the plan?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, jump on, pull him into the show.
All right, well, you guys can chime in. So,
we go with the flow here on the Civic Oakland County Megacast.
Whatever. All right. Do you guys want to do a legal ID or something, or before we get started? Because,
It is
it's a
that time, yeah.
fascinating guy. We cannot interrupt an interview with Mark here for a legal ID.
Absolutely. So we'll do that
And
real
handsome.
quick.
Can you hear the
Yeah,
hands?
we'll do that real quick. This is 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake. You're also watching us on Civic Center TV on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. Same channels in Birmingham, also on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Dave?
All right, well, sorry we're not bringing you this via television, but joining me now is West Bloomfield Assistant Fire Chief Mark Lowry, an Army Ranger veteran, and happy Veterans Day. Good to be with you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a thrill to be here, just to see how the community supports our local veterans. This is a great, great, great event. Seeing everybody in line and seeing everybody waving flags, it's awesome.
And we got flags, you got the music in the background. And don't you love seeing the World War II guys, coming through here, doing good, looking proud. The World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam veterans, the guys that have been around for a long time that made such an enormous contribution to our country.
That's a group and a generation that understood the term service. That's a group of folks who thought little of themselves and thought more about the red, white, and blue than they did anything else. If we want to make it, modern or what's happening today, there's a lot of red and blue talk. These folks will tell you that red, white, and blue is much more important than any of those singular colors all day long.
One of the things that I always like at this event every year that we can't really enjoy with people isolated in their cars is we would get, the Army guys that sit at one table and the Marine Corps guys would sit at another table and the Air Force and Navy guys. And there's a little bit of a rivalry
and
going
where we
on
would
there.
continue to heckle one another in good fun. When it really came down to it, we were all on the same team. We really were. It's service to nation, service to community. Kind of like our first responders here today. You have PD, you have FD. These are people that understand, taking care of others, and that's what's important.
Assistant Fire Chief West Bloomfield Mark Lowry here, an Army Ranger veteran. And, it's no big surprise that we see a lot of veterans as first responders. It seems to be a natural connection. You want to talk about that?
Some of that service that you learn about in the Army or in the Navy or in the Marines or in the Air Force, you realize that service to something bigger than you is probably the most important thing, and it makes you actually, quite honestly, feel good. So that's probably why you see a lot of first responders continuing into public service, where we're continuing to give back, whether it's to the nation or to our local community. And the support that we get from this particular community, West Bloomfield, is amazing. Events like this, where you see everybody coming out to support our local veterans from all of the services and from all of the wars, it really feels good. These folks that we're seeing drive by in their cars, they wrote a check to the United States government for up to and including their lives, and they happily handed it over. So it's a big deal. It really is. And to see the people say thank you makes them feel good. That's honoring them for what they've done. And a simple wave and a simple thank you is all any of them generally ask for.
And we did go through a really dark era around Vietnam when I don't think the country, due to the anxiety and protests around war at that time, really offered the depth of appreciation to veterans that we do now. Fortunately, we've seen the light, and we can protest the politicians and honor the veterans.
Yeah, it's a small percentage of the nation's population that serves in the armed forces. And it's that small percentage of population that allows us to have those protests and allows us to, disagree openly. There's a lot of places where you can't do that. Here we can, and it's thanks to these folks that are driving by in their red, white, and blue cars right now. That's a great scene right there.
My father was in the service, and they're kind of like two categories of veterans. The category that you sit down with them, you have a beer on Friday night, and they can't talk enough about their days, the good days, the bad days when they were in the service. And there are guys like my dad who, he just would never talk about his days. You have any thoughts on that?
It's a really humble group. I think you'd probably find that there's veterans standing in the crowd here today that are cheering for others. I know we have a couple in our own fire department that are here cheering others on because they're a quiet group. It's part of that, what's ingrained into you when you're serving others. You're a humble individual for the most part. It's great to see.
Well, I appreciate you being here with us. Assistant Fire Chief Mark Lowry, the West Bloomfield Fire Department, a veteran and a Army Ranger. That's you guys aren't slackers or Rangers. We think of Rangers and we think of maybe some of the toughest guys that served our country.
Well, any ranger will tell you that obviously they are. I think you'd probably get some pushback from other folks in other
maybe
in other
maybe a couple of
services.
Marines.
Oh, yeah.
And
thank God they're not here to push me away from this microphone. They probably could. But no, it was an honor to serve then, and it's still an honor to serve as part of the fire department now.
Heroes Appreciation Celebration going on. Dave Scott at Lakes FM. We are here at the West Bloomfield Civic Center complex, and we got a long line of cars. I was joking down Northwestern Highway, but we do have a long line of cars. 206 lunches served. We're doing it in a drive-by fashion this year as a result of COVID-19, and but we'd be glad to have you come by and say hello and be a part of the event. Tyler, Ronnie, do you guys have any questions for Mark? Anything you want to contribute, or any questions you have for Assistant Fire Chief Lowry?
Yeah, I think you pretty much did a great job out there yourself, Dave, asking him everything we would. But if you could just extend our gratitude to the Assistant Fire Chief for his sacrifice and in his time serving our nation as well. It is greatly appreciated. And I know that as he mentioned, they may be humble and not like to get the accolades that they deserve, but it is greatly appreciated. And again, due to the contentious week we've all had with this election, it's great to be able to focus on the people that have done so much for our country, and we want to say thank you.
All right.
You're welcome, and we'll focus on the red, white, and blue instead of just red and blue today. That would be great.
I like the way you say that. That sounds good to me, too. All right, you guys, listen, I'd like to walk around and talk to some of the people here. I don't know how we can work that into our broadcast today, but whatever you guys think back at the studio. Again, Dave Scott, we're here on a beautiful day at the West Bloomfield Civic Center complex. Mark, thank you very much for
You're welcome. I'm thrilled to be here.
Any final comments for us today on this as we honor the veterans and Veterans Day?
It's just great to see the outpouring of support for those who have allowed us the freedoms that we all currently enjoy.
All right, Tyler, Ronnie, I'll send it back to you, and feel free to ship it right back. I'll talk to some of the veterans in their cars and the many other people that are here at the Civic Center complex in West Bloomfield on Walnut Lake Road.
Thank you so much, Dave. And also out at the same event, although if we can, we're pulling him up here, Tyler, and I see that he is taking a moment to honor some of the veterans himself, and that is going to be the West Bloomfield Fire Chief, Greg Flynn. But we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we get back, we'll be speaking directly with the Chief. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/contain-COVID. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you with us on this Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. It is an absolutely beautiful day outside, even though Tyler and I are stuck here inside the studio. I can't wait to get off, to get out and enjoy this weather, because before you know it, snow may be flying, as Old Man Winter typically does visit the great state of Michigan around the same time every year. I think a few years ago we had a huge snowstorm about this time, but that is not the case right now. We are going to be joined on the show now by the West Bloomfield Fire Department Chief Greg Flynn. Always great having you with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. You're standing outside. You're at the Heroes Appreciation Luncheon. You don't even have a coat on, and it's November in Michigan. This is a miracle.
Up there talking about snow, you made me a little nervous out here, but it is absolutely gorgeous out here, and what a wonderful way to celebrate all of our veterans, that the West Bloomfield Parks and the commitment that they have for our veterans every year, and to pivot during COVID and keep the event on and keep that recognition for those that have served us and so bravely have served us. It's great to be part of it, as I'm joined with so many folks from the community, volunteers and folks working in the township. It's spectacular.
Chief Greg Flynn with us from the West Bloomfield Fire Department, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Chief, Dave Scott just spoke with Mark Lowry. We, of course, have other veterans that have served in our fire department, in our police department, and other emergency services in the local area. How does their service in our armed forces, protecting our country, help them be prepared and to serve our community, and help others in their department also serve our community with great leadership and the grace that they do?
Tyler, in 2016, 2017, there was a career survey that was done. The most dangerous job out there was the enlisted military. The second most dangerous job was a firefighter. So when we take someone that has served in the military, they learn that commitment to country and community. That translates very nicely into that commitment for country, into that commitment for community here at a local level. They understand the discipline of a military type environment. The fire and police services, emergency services are very paramilitary. And so there's just such a wonderful transition for those that have served to continue to serve in local municipal emergency services.
And Chief, can you talk about some of those skills and how they are so vital to your department that translate from the military into the firefighter sector, or even, medical side as well?
Well, Ronnie, when you take into the context of today, where we look at now, I haven't seen the numbers posted, and we probably won't until about 3 o'clock, but over 5,000 cases of new COVID diagnosis across Michigan. And to continue to serve when you know that this danger, right, this threat to your health and wellness is there, but you continue to show up. The military does an excellent job of putting those brave men and women on the front lines in a military type operation, protecting our country's interests. And it translates so nicely into the same thing within the community. When you're scared, when you smell something that's burning, or you hear someone around outside your house and you pick up that phone and you call 911, to know that there are individuals that already have a great deal of experience with that anticipation for the unknown, that preparation for the unknown. It really is just an awesome fit. And we see that with our veterans that are here working at the WBFD and at the PD and in the township and at water and sewer, anywhere in that whole government municipal service space. There really is a good fit.
Chief, what I love is seeing all the American flags fly behind you. It
Yes.
seems like it's like such a sense of community, and we can all use that right now after the divisive week that we've had with this election, and it's still ongoing, and the news can get overwhelming and raise that anxiety and make us feel like we're not communicating with one another. So to see you and the others out at this event and this great event, and to know that you're honoring those that have sacrificed so much for our country, it really does a heart good, huh?
It does. And Ronnie and Tyler, we've talked about that national narrative and how it doesn't always align with what happens here in West Bloomfield, in the greater West Bloomfield area. This illustrates this firsthand. I'm sure there are people that have voted for different candidates lining this sidewalk, but what we all have in common is a true, genuine respect and thanks for those that have served our country and those that are serving our country. I mean, that's what this all represents, right? This is more than just those that have served. We're recognizing those that are currently serving, those that can't be here, those that are voting from overseas, but still part of this great country and participating in the experience from Tuesday, and that seems to be a bit of a Groundhog's Day. You just keep waking up and it's a bit of the same news cycle. It seems like, but I'm hopeful that comes to some closure here in the next day or so.
Chief Greg Flynn with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He today is out at the Heroes Appreciation Celebration at West Bloomfield Parks. We have Dave Scott out on site as well. We'll come to him in just a moment with one of our veterans that is there on site as we continue to talk with Chief Greg Flynn. So, Chief Flynn, as the cases have continued to rise, as we're seeing that average number of cases and the positivity rate rise, what are you doing what is your department doing in partnership, of course, with the police and with the township and with local community organizations and businesses to prepare should we have another situation that is as severe or close to as severe as we have experienced previously?
Well, Tyler, I think keeping some of these things in context, not an alarmist, but what we need to be reflecting on is we're seeing early on, we were concerned about how severe the COVID-19, the actual disease state of the virus, the COVID-19, and how that was impacting our hospitals. Now this has flipped a bit, and you're getting a local opinion here. I'm not trying to be one of these national experts. What we're seeing is more wide community spread, which isn't necessarily having the huge impact on when we used to have ventilator talks and they're just ICUs were full. While they are filling, and that is my understanding, we are getting some people that are very sick. We're seeing the impact now that there aren't people to go to their jobs and do the things that we very much want open. I heard you talk about the restaurant business. Well, that's great that you can open, but right now there's so much community spread that your employees are getting sick, not admitted to the hospital, but they're not able to work. We've seen an uptick in that at the fire department. As firefighters, just like everybody else with their family, their kids are going to school. That's putting them at a double risk now as they go home after being at work for 24 hours and treating folks that are sick. Now we're around others that are out and about in the community and the potential for exposure. So it is alarming. We need to stay resilient. We need to stay focused and not get fatigued on the issue of COVID because it's still here. My mask, I took it off just before the presentation or just before speaking with you, and you can see I'm far away from everybody. We need to keep those best skills up. But maybe we could talk a little bit more next week. I'm sure you want to hear much more from our veterans that are here with Dave and who the real focus is on today.
Chief Flynn, we're going to keep you around if you can stick around a little bit. We know that you're out there taking part in the celebration as well. It's our Heroes Appreciation, a drive-through luncheon going on over there at the Greater West Bloomfield Civic Center area. And for right now, for the latest update, let's go back to our very own Dave Scott. He's on site there. Dave, how are you? How's it going?
Really good, Ronnie. Really good. Thank you very much. And good to hear from the fire chief, and really glad that he had an opportunity to show you what's going on here. We're set up with our radio gear right now. And I'm going to just walk out, if it's okay, and see if we can get an opportunity to say hello to some of the veterans. Sir, hang on. Let me go to the next car here. Cars are continuing to make their way through. We're at the West Bloomfield Township complex, the Civic Center complex in front of the Parks and Recreation building, and people are driving through in their car like this gentleman here. Hello, sir. Do you mind if I say hello?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Your name?
Chuck Greer.
Chuck, you're wearing a Marine hat. Can I assume you are in the Navy? No, you're a Marine.
We belong to that Navy.
I understand. Thank you very much for your service. Good to be here. Looks like you got something to eat. It's a privilege to honor you and the others that are here today. What are your thoughts on this important day?
My thought is that I'm representing those that can't be here. We lost lots of people, and thank God that it's America and we have a voice.
You know, I think we all have an appreciation for our democracy, our country, and everything that is so great about what we all have. But, you know, it's so important that we remember to thank and honor those of you who made such a sacrifice. And it's got to be even more moving for you being there and seeing others that have fallen in person and know the contribution that they made and the fact that you're here today.
Well, my wife is a William Beaumont doctor, and she couldn't be with me today because she's at the hospital, and she's a real hero with all the rest of those folks.
Well, very kind of you, sir. I'm holding up the line. Thank you very much. And very, very good to talk to another one of our veterans here. And Tyler and Ronnie, maybe we can say hello to one more gentleman. Hello, your name?
Saul Dunn.
Saul, tell us about where you are, where you live, and what brought you here today.
I live right here in West Bloomfield. I'm 90 years old now. I managed to get out through all of that other stuff, so I don't even think about it that often until it's Veterans Day.
Well, but we're really glad that you get out of veterans. I'm glad you were here to be able to get a meal. I see that you're wearing a hat that indicates that you served in the Korean War.
Right. That war that wasn't a war, right?
Wow. I'm sure it seemed like a war when you were there, right?
It certainly did. Now, I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
And how you doing? You doing okay? You look great.
I feel good, yeah.
All right, thank you very much, and we honor those. There's a huge line here, Ronnie and Tyler, and I'm going to send it back to you guys for a couple of minutes, and we'll talk to some more veterans here as we honor our heroes today.
So, Dave, I have to say, I know that you want to get back and try to speak with some of the veterans out there, but your first gentleman, when he said, "I'm here for those that can't be here," I think that is a very heartfelt reminder to all of us, as this has been a very divisive week, a very divisive 6 months here in our country. And when you hear directly from the men and women that have served our country and what they have seen and they have witnessed and they have survived, we have to remember there are a lot of people that have not survived. So, it's great what you're doing out there, but it also puts life in perspective about what we're going through right now, because at the end of the day, we are definitely all Americans. Wouldn't you agree, Tyler?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing from our veterans in the community that do come to this event each and every year is, as much as we are celebrating their service, they're celebrating the service of their friends, their family, those that they have known over the years that have fought either with them or have fought in other capacities or in other times that without them that have fallen, and making sure that those people are also celebrated as thoroughly as they deserve to be.
So do we still have the chief with us at all? Chief Flynn, I see that you're still out there. If we can just kind of bring you back in for 2 seconds, if you can jump back in with us. When you're out there and you're talking to some of our veterans that have served and they've seen the horrors of war, and we've been through what we've been through this past 6 months with this election, how does this touch your heart? And when you leave at the end of the day after speaking to some of these men and women, how will you change what you're doing in living your life?
Ronnie, I want to maybe take you back a few years for me on the job with the experience that I had. We had a gentleman in the township that would fall often, and his lovely bride would call us and ask us to come and help pick him up, and we always would come through the front door. And he was always very humble and would always apologize for calling us out. Well, it was a bad winter night. We got the call, and she had the garage door up, and we came in through the garage door. And as we came in down this hallway, I noticed a picture of an aircraft carrier, and 2 or 3 of them. And as we went to pick him up, and we got him back in his bed, I said, "Hey, sir, I saw the picture of the aircraft carrier. Was that?" And he said, "Yes, I served on that aircraft carrier. I was the JAG officer." And it helped me as a young medic realize how humble our veterans are. And at no point did he ever bring that up. He was a very senior officer, a long tour on that aircraft carrier. And it really helped me to appreciate that all of those that we bump into in the grocery store, or you see somebody that needs a little bit of help, there's a very, very high probability that they have served our country. And it just kind of helped to ground me that no matter how big and tough we are, at kind of that, if you will, to use maybe not the right term, but the prime of your life, that at some point, all of those who have served will need to be served by someone else. And what an honor that truly is to be there, to lend a hand and to help somebody who has lent his hands and his back and body and mind to help keep me and my wife and my family and all of us safe. They all play a part. And I think that's just something that these events help us to ground ourselves. And really appreciate that last interview too, that when that gentleman said, and I was listening in, for those that couldn't be here, that really, I hope it gives us all just a second today to pause and think about our military and the conditions that they're in and the isolation that they have, being far away from their loved ones.
Well, Chief Flynn, we want to say thank you for sharing your stories, but also for being out there today, and to you and your entire team for the way that you're serving our community as well, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of this new surge. You guys, a long few months ahead of you and the rest of the community and all of us as we continue to navigate this crisis. But I think it's great that what you all are doing out there today, and what a great way to do it with a drive-through service and with the beautiful weather that we are having today. So we'll let you go because we know you're busy. We've taken up enough of your time. We'll go back to Dave Scott. I believe that he is still out there on the scene at the Heroes Appreciation Luncheon there. Dave, can we bring you back into the show?
Very good, Ronnie. I am here. Sorry I didn't bring along a television camera with me, but I hope you don't mind me walking around incognito with a microphone. It's just a beautiful environment. We've got our first responders, and you saw it on Chief Flynn's video, all here, and other township employees waving their flags and supporting the veterans as they come through. We're serving up a lot of folks today. I'll get a chance to jump out here if you guys got a minute or two. We can say hello to a couple of more people. And Ronnie, I appreciate your comments a couple of minutes ago. The reality, to keep it positive, is all of this turmoil and disruption we have in our current political environment. We wouldn't be able to do this if the sacrifices of these individuals weren't made. So, I'm trying to keep it positive today and recognize everybody here. With that, I'm going to put my mask on and say hello to a couple of more people. Hello, sir. Who are you?
John O'Leary and my wife, Judy.
Hi, John and Judy. Very good to meet you. What a beautiful automobile. Tell us about your car.
Well, I tell you, I was a former commissioner of Parks and Rec in West Bloomfield. Goes way back to the good old days, but this is a 1965 Corvair.
It's a beautiful car, and how are these guys doing at Parks and Rec? Are they living out your legacy well?
Living the dream.
You're wearing a U.S. Air Force hat, and as a pilot, we can step up here a little bit. That's certainly my favorite branch. Talk about your service, if you don't mind.
I was in the Air Force in 1962 and 1963, and then in the reserves until 1968. And I'm very proud. We didn't have, the hat is an A-10 Warthog. We didn't have that kind of equipment. I flew on a C-119, so it was a different world.
Well, the technology changes, but the bravery, the courage, and the mission is the same regardless of era or generation, sir.
You do what you have to do. You got to do it.
Well, you did a great job. Thank you very much. Enjoy your meal. Very good to see you. Love the car, and thanks for your hard work on behalf of the West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation Department. So we're continuing to see a nice stream of cars coming through here, and a lot of people. Hi, Pam Zajac.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
This is an incredible event. I'm great. This is really nice what you put on.
I didn't do it. The Parks and Rec Department did it, but I'll take all the credit, I guess. For those of you that don't know, Pam is one of the most active people in our community, and former West Bloomfield School District PR marketing guru, and just great to see. And you've been involved in this event, so just great to see it outside. It kind of worked, huh?
It really did, yeah. We've gone to the breakfasts every year, which are really well put on, but Parks and Recreation does such a great job.
Well, good to see you. I'm going to get my toes out of the way so they don't get under your tires. Thank you very much. Let's talk to one more veteran, and then we'll send it back to you. Can I say hello, sir?
You most certainly can.
You're wearing a Vietnam veteran hat. Tell us your name, where you're from, and whatever else you want to say.
Steve Varus, and we live here in West Bloomfield, and we've lived here for about 25 years, and we enjoy it, and we're just glad to be here.
Tell your wife is giving you instructions, telling you what to talk. Your wife probably never tells you what to do, does she?
In the Army, I was in Vietnam from 1979 through 1971, and glad to be back.
Well, thank you very much for your service in Vietnam. And you think about the Vietnam veterans especially. It wasn't easy then, and you weren't all welcomed home the way you should have been.
It was, that's true. We were faced with some questions from some people that just had no idea what was going on, and it's pretty embarrassing sometimes. But we got used to it, and we started to feel a little bit more comfortable after about 2 or 3 months.
Well, thank you very much. I'm so glad that our country has come together and came to our wits with regard to the Vietnam-era veterans, and thank you so much for your service. Good to see you. Enjoy your meal, and 89.3. You can turn WWJ off on the radio. Put 89.3 Lakes FM on in there, and we'll be all set. Just kidding. Thank you very much. I'm going to say hello to Kelly Woodley here real quick from Orchard Mall. Then I'll send it back to you. She's involved in so many different things. Kelly, this event was in your mall the last couple of years, but this is pretty nice out here, huh?
It's fabulous. This is my favorite event of the year.
Why is that?
Because it's just so wonderful to honor those that do so much for us.
It's kind of nice. I didn't know how the drive-thru was going to work because we traditionally would set up in the mall, have a nice ceremony, feed everybody, but this worked out really well.
Yeah, Dave, I didn't tell you my first job was at the drive-thru at Arby's, so I was prepared for today.
I'd like a beef and cheddar and a Jamocha shake, please.
Oh, Jamocha shake for sure. Would you like curly fries or regular today?
You want some fries with that, sir? Good job. Good job. Thank you for everything you do. And, we also appreciate you sponsoring the radio broadcast of the Lakers football games. So tonight is a big tournament game. Troy, West Bloomfield, final score tonight.
West Bloomfield, all the way.
No one scored against them in 4 games.
Well, they're not going to tonight either.
All right, very good. So what's the final score going to be?
Big.
Big. I cannot get an answer from her. Big. She says, Tyler, Ronnie, back to you from Civic Center Complex.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. I will say, when you're speaking with some of the veterans and their stories, it really does humble your heart. And to hear their stories, obviously, this is so much more than about a lunch. This is about just recognizing the sacrifice that they have made for our country. The one gentleman, 90 years old, Tyler, out there, and he seemed like he was a feisty 90-year-old. So a great event, the Heroes Appreciation Drive-Through Lunch, put on by the West Bloomfield Parks, the West Bloomfield Township, and Orchard Mall, making it all possible. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
Thank you for tuning in to the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studio alongside the one, the only Mr. Tyler Key.
Oh, please.
He gets the show up and running each and every day, and we are extremely grateful for all that you do here at Civic Center TV, Tyler. And just a reminder, you can catch Tyler and I here in the studios Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. And you can tune in on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 Comcast, Channel 99 if you have AT&T. If you're out driving around, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, The Biff. This is the special edition somewhat of the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast, because our one and only man of the hour is our general manager, Dave Scott. He is out at the Heroes Appreciation Drive-Through Luncheon, an event that has been put on for the past several years by the West Bloomfield Parks and Recs Department, the West Bloomfield Township, as well as Orchard Mall. Typically, it is inside. It is a way to honor and recognize our heroes, our veterans during this time of the country. I think it's more important this year than years past that I can recall. So this is a great event that they are doing out there. Is Dave still with us? Can we check back in? Dave, can we check back in with you? Anyone else that you're speaking with out there?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know how far my microphone is going to go. So let me take a little walk, if you guys would walk with me. And we'll go say hello to some of our elected officials if we can, and just a couple of other people. Hey, here's Debbie Binder, West Bloomfield Township Clerk. You're awake?
I'm awake. One more night of good sleep, I think I'll be in great shape.
So really good to see you here today. Your thoughts at this amazing event?
I think the weather certainly supported the awesomeness of the event, but this is so important to let our veterans know how much we support them and how much we appreciate them, because what we went through this week with the election would not have been possible without their service and sacrifice. So I really am beyond grateful to all of them, and it's a nice way to recognize them.
Well, it's really well said. We were talking a minute ago. We wouldn't be able to be doing any of what we're doing right now. Yes, it is a very challenging time in our country politically, but the fact that we're able to have a challenging time rather than just not be a democratic society, that's really amazing. I mean, that we can go through all of what we're going through, and that we can have, some challenging days, but we wouldn't be having these days if these folks that are here today that we're feeding didn't make the ultimate sacrifice, many of them, and going to serve our country and create this amazing freedom and amazing land we live in.
And undeniably, and I think as much as this is a day, I wrote in my sign, as much as this is a day to recognize them, they need to know that we're grateful for them every day, because we don't always recognize them when they're out on the streets. So we need to make sure when we do recognize somebody, or they're wearing some kind of identification showing their pride for their service, we need to acknowledge it and make sure they know how much we appreciate it. It wasn't just service, it was sacrifice. And we're really grateful, a grateful community. We have a large number of vets in our community, and this is a wonderful opportunity to say thank you and recognize them. But we need to make sure that that's recognized every day.
Well said. Any follow-up comments from a very local perspective as you reflect back in this past week?
It's just been a really busy week, and we had turnout that was a record turnout. And again, the community, all of the concerns about the contention and everything, we just didn't see it at the polls. Everybody was respectful, made sure everyone got their voice heard. It went smoothly, and we had a lot of support in place. We have 350 new election inspectors that stepped up to fulfill those roles. We didn't need all of them, but I think the public heard the need and they stepped up. So we're really just, it's been a long election, a lot of hours, but it's been much smoother than we anticipated.
You know, and when you think about it, I mean, I think anyone would agree that the process that we went through was different this time. It had to be different because of COVID-19 to let all of those people that would have been disenfranchised, to exclude them from the opportunity to vote in such a critical election. But any time you go through something with this much change, it's this different, there's going to be some disruption. And, you know, we don't see it here. I mean, it's not surprising there wouldn't be some around the country, but kudos to you, to Oakland County, to the folks here in the state of Michigan that, at least from all outward appearances, things went pretty well.
We had a lot of support between the state, the county, and local. We really did have a lot of support to make sure that it could happen. We're a pretty large jurisdiction. We're up to 56,600 registered voters in 25 precincts, in 7 school districts. So it is a large operation to manage, but we did it, and we did it with a lot of support. The village, I have told you before, it's a big job managing an election. It's an even bigger job managing an election with historic numbers. And add that COVID element, it adds a whole new thing. We did have COVID in August, in November. In August, I think it created more fear for people working, but we fortunately didn't have that in November. We had plenty of people that came in. We obviously took tremendous precautions to make sure that we could ensure everybody's safety, but they also understood how important it was to make sure that everybody's vote was counted and everybody's voice was heard.
All right, Debbie, well done. Take a nap.
I think one more night of a good sleep, I should be back to normal. But thank you for your support, and thank you to the community for supporting our veterans, and make sure you support them every day. Thank you.
Very good. Debbie Binder, West Bloomfield Township Clerk. She looks no worse for the wear. You know, I wish you guys could see on TV right now. Thank you very much for your hard work and your contribution. Tyler, Ronnie, we are here to honor the sacrifices made by our veterans. But, you know, people in all walks of life make contributions and make sacrifices. And, you know, at some level, we certainly are honoring the enormous contribution of our veterans. But it's always a good time just to think about everybody else and the little things that we all do to make our world a better place and our country a better country.
Well said, Dave. Well said. And with that, we'll go ahead and let you wrap it up out there, because I know the lunch is about to end at 12 o'clock. But again, our extreme gratitude and appreciation to the entire team over there and taking their time and the planning that went into trying to pull this off this year in the middle of a pandemic. And in the middle of the pandemic, Tyler, they did not forget about our true heroes that have sacrificed so much for our country. I know I have family members that have served in the military. My nephew, the latest, he served in the Iraq War, and I can tell you, you do not come home from serving in a war as the same person that you went over to. So for all of them, we want to say thank you, and thank you for everything that you have done. And, you know, it's a good reminder for so many of us here in the country as we continue to wait for the outcome for this presidential election, that a lot of people did so much for us to have this freedom, for us to be able to vote, for us to be able to have our voices heard, but also for us to live in this country. I spoke a couple weeks ago to an immigrant, and they were saying Americans don't understand or realize just how great of a country that we are living in. And these can be contentious times. We're in the middle of a pandemic, a divisive election, and we are going into the holidays as well. And that can create some very stressful times in our world, as well as the world of our loved ones. So if we can, we want to go ahead and just round out the show speaking with Dr. Brooke Weingartner. She's a psychiatrist over at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Thank you for being with us here on the Oakland County Megacast, and we're hoping that you can bring some calm and peace to our anxiety living lives right now on this Friday as we round out the week. Thank you for being with us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me. There is a lot of anxiety right now in so many ways. There's COVID anxiety, there's election anxiety, there is, season changing anxiety. There's so much there right now. And I think that as the holidays are coming to close, November is usually a month of gratitude. And this has been a little more of a chaotic time. So I think that it's important, first of all, if you're hosting a holiday, to remember that we're still in the middle of this pandemic. Our numbers are rising, so we're keeping it small. And so I think that is going to be a good thing for us, especially right now when not everybody's on the same page as far as this election. A lot of people, really the country is divided, and that can bring up a lot more anxiety, and that can make a meal a little more uncomfortable. So I think that there needs to be boundaries. Saying that no politics at the table. These are things that we're not discussing. We are here because we're a family. We're here together. We're keeping it small because we want to be safe. These are just not things that we're talking about. And there are some family members that will appreciate this wholeheartedly, and there are some people that may decide not to come, and that's okay. I think that this needs to be a protected time for families to be together in a safe way and to enjoy each other's company without stressing each other out. And politics right now is the number one thing that's going to stress everybody out. That is going to be something that it should be eliminated at talk at the table. I think we just keep that away. And if you're hosting, you get to set those boundaries. You get to make those rules. And I think that's really important that you do. And if somebody's not comfortable with that, then they can choose to go somewhere else. And that's okay. We're doing Zoom, Thanksgivings and Zoom holidays, and finding ways of connecting as long as it's a way that's going to make you feel good and be able to appreciate Thanksgiving and the other holidays that will be coming up.
So, and Doctor, and knowing that, you put these parameters in place going into the dinner or into the meeting, but yet sometimes people tend to sway back to their habits or their conversation. How can someone redirect the conversation without it ending up into a full-fledged fight?
Ultimately, you do the best that you can, and whatever you're going to do is going to be the best that you can do in a kind way. We are trying to veer the conversation, sometimes a gentle reminder of, we're going to table this conversation for now. If you'd like to talk about it at another time, maybe, but this isn't the place. And if somebody, and maybe letting people know ahead of time, we're leaving politics out of dinner, and if it's brought up, we're going to remind you that, so that it's not a surprise. We're not talking about this. We're here because we're family. And if we're anticipating difficulty, that's okay. It's better to keep our dinner small. Again, we're in a pandemic. So I think just, changing the subject, gentle reminders. This is a time where people get very heated, and sometimes you can't always avoid those things, but we really just have to do the best that we can. And I think sometimes in the best of circumstances, some family dinners can be a little bit provoking in general. So, it's just a dinner. It's just a short period of time. We're going to get through it as best as we can and try our best to enjoy it. But again, trying to just put that out there at the beginning and say, these are my boundaries. This is what we're comfortable with. We're not going to go there as a conversation topic because it's not going to make it a nice dinner. We want to enjoy your company, and let's try to do that.
I like to have that deck of conversation starters. And there are some fun ones out there too. And so when things start to go a little bit off the rails, just pull a card and bring up a different topic.
I think that's great. I think that's a really great way to do it. And you can even Google fun or silly, holiday conversation topics. Those are always really fun. Make it into a game. We're going to do this as a family. There's, possibly there's kids and there's, lots of different age ranges, and so we want to keep this as a family show, and so I think that cards of topics of conversation are great having the kids put on a show or a play, or finding ways to include everybody. And oftentimes, as you veer the conversation, it's not so inclusive anyways.
Dr. Brooke Weingarten with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She's a psychiatrist over at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Stress and anxiety is real, even more so now than ever before, and it tends to keep getting compounded because, think back to March. We thought this was going to be 2 weeks, 2 months. Now we're 7 months into this. Kids are having to go back to remote learning. Parents are still trying to struggle with their schedules and balancing work and paying the bills. How can people, address their anxiety and their stress in a real way to get them through the next however many months and not just bottle it deep down inside?
So that's a really important question, because what I'm seeing right now are more people struggling than I've probably ever seen in my career. This is a really tough time, and first and foremost, it's important to acknowledge that, and that if people are struggling, it's okay. Normalizing the fact that everybody is really having a hard time with this. The isolation, the stressors, just not knowing when this is going to end. This is very Groundhog Day-like. And so I think that, first of all, normalizing that everybody is really struggling is important. But then what do we do about it? I think it's really important to stay connected to peers in a safe way, whether it's virtually or whether it's outside and social distance. And we live in Michigan. When it gets cold, you can bundle up and go outside. We play outside in all temperatures. We can do this. I think it's important to stay connected. It's important to stay active. Making sure you have a good sleep and eating schedule is vital, because having that routine is going to remind you that this isn't one giant year-long day, as much as it feels that way. Making sure that you are getting exercise and staying outside and moving your body and seeing that there's a change of scenery that's not just the walls of your home is really important, because it feels very much like everybody is in their boxes and everybody is very isolated from one another. And that's really difficult. So I think it's important, and I remind my patients every day to stay connected and stay active and find little interesting, creative things to do. And at the same time, is if you're really, truly still struggling and you need extra help, don't ever hesitate to ask. Talk to a school counselor, talk to a friend, talk to a psychologist or a social worker. Come see a psychiatrist if that's something that would be helpful for you. Because everybody is in this right now. Everybody is needing things, and ever put yourself behind, make sure that if that's something that you're needing, that you're okay with asking for it, because that's why we're here.
Dr. Brooke Weingarten with us. She is the psychiatrist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. Dr. Weingarten, there's so much that is going on and causing stressors or causing anxieties for people, whether it be the presidential election, whether it be the upcoming holidays, or COVID-19 dragging on, work stresses, just the general stresses of life that come and go on any given week, any given month, any given year in any person's life. With all these things compounding right now, as it seems that they are for so many people, what do you advise your patients and just the general public in how to deal with all these compounding issues as they're happening simultaneously without overloading yourself in trying to navigate all these issues and your own personal situation as well?
So I think, we can't always do it ourselves. I tell my patients it's important to have support. And if you don't have support, find a way of getting it, whether it's a therapist or a psychiatrist or a friend. We don't have to do this alone. This is a lot. And I think, again, acknowledging that it's a lot and recognizing that this is something we've never experienced before. So self-care is huge, taking care of ourselves, doing what we need to be able to get through this. Because again, this is uncharted territory for pretty much all of us. And this is more than many people have ever had to deal with. And so taking care of our physical health, our mental health, doing things that are relaxing and nourishing and stimulating and making us feel good, I think, and connecting with other people is a really helpful way of recognizing that we're not alone in this.
So, and Dr. Depression is very real. And when someone feels like they're starting to go down that rabbit hole, what advice do you have for them to be able to try to shift their mindset and snap out of it? And I know it's not that easy, but are there some things an individual can do so that they can, if they feel depression coming on, they can move into a different direction?
So it really depends on the type of depression that someone's experiencing, and it depends on their family history. And there's lots of things that are involved in how susceptible someone is to the severity of their depression. But when you're having difficulty, when you're feeling depressed, first and foremost, if it really is to the point where you're spiraling and it's that bad, definitely reach out for professional help. If you're sort of going down a slope and you're recognizing it and you're trying to just sort of change the trajectory, again, making sure that as much as you feel that you want to just be alone in a dark room, you have to talk to that inner voice and say, no, that's not what we're doing. Finding a way of having social connections and changing your environment and exercise. Those are all things that are going to increase your dopamine levels in your system, which can help to increase your mood. If there are certain things that are enjoyable to you, whether it's baking or dancing or walking or biking, whatever it may be, trying to engage in some of those activities is going to be helpful. And again, making sure that you're taking care of your sleep hygiene and you're eating properly. And if those things are still not working, remembering that it's important to reach out if that's something that's spiraling, because it may only continue to go down that hole. And sometimes, whether it be working with a therapist, doing some cognitive behavioral therapy or some supportive therapy, that may be what you need, is someone else to guide you, or it may be something that needs a little bit of medical support as well. And all of those things are okay.
So, and Doctor, when should someone know that they're just going through a depression or stress or anxiety because of all this craziness we're going through right now in the world? When should they know it's time to actually seek help?
So some of the main symptoms of depression include, if there are activities that you enjoy, things that you like, things that you normally would enjoy doing, not enjoying those things or not having interest in things that may have given you joy, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, feelings of guilt, sometimes having dark and scary thoughts or self-harm, feeling sad, crying often, sometimes not having any emotion at all, mood swings, sometimes anger, increased anxiety, sleep difficulty concentrating. You may see this, changing in your work schedule or in your schooling and having difficulty staying on top of tasks, not able to engage as well with others. And it doesn't have to be all of those things, but if you're noticing more and more of those types of symptoms, it may be a good idea even just to reach out to your primary care physician. Or if you have a therapist, reaching out to them. There's nothing wrong at any point in time with having that little bit of extra support. And honestly, we don't know how long this is going to be going on for. So I tell everybody, even if you're having a little bit of symptoms, start with a therapist, start with somebody just to process all of this, because maybe we all need to be doing that. This is a lot, and it's important to be able to have somebody to bounce that off of and to be able to make sure, I'm okay with this. And maybe I'm not okay, but if I'm not okay, somebody can help me be okay.
Well, we so appreciate your time and your advice as well, because there are a lot of people that are struggling right now. And hopefully one thing that is going to come out of the COVID-19 crisis is we are lifting the veil off of mental health and starting to have serious conversations, and people need to understand that it is okay to reach out and to ask for help. Dr. Brooke Weingarten with us. She is a psychiatrist over at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. If you feel like you need to speak to someone, please do not be too proud. It is okay to ask for help. So thank you so much for your time. And Tyler, another week gone just like that. It's been a very long week with the election still in the midst as votes are still being counted across the country. So hang in there, everyone. We will get through this. We want to say a huge thank you to Dave Scott out at the Heroes Appreciation Drive-Through Luncheon, as well as West Bloomfield Parks, the West Bloomfield Township, and Orchard Mall, as well as we were able to bring you a little bit of tasting today from the Drive-Through Appreciation Lunch. That's going to wrap it up for the Oakland County Megacast. We'll be back here next Monday. Happy weekend, everyone.